Welcome to Beer, Bourbon, and Games. I am your host, Chris, and today we have traveled up to Penn Ave. We're sitting here with Mark from Willow Creek Brewing. We're just going to start really simple here with you. Can you introduce yourself a little bit and just tell us how you got into craft beer?
Weird journey. My name is Mark Camlin. I served in the military for a long time, but when I first went into the Air Force in 1982 and got out in 1986 and wanted to keep drinking beers that I had drank all over the world, and they didn't exist in the late 80s in the United States. So there was a couple. There was Sierra Nevada. There was Fritz Maytag out on the left coast. So I started brewing my own. And then in the early 90s, I started a brewery called Ugly Dog Brewing. And it wasn't the best time for brewing breweries because, to do anything good, you had to be $250,000 in equipment. The regulations weren't there really to help the small brewery. The guys that did work back then, they were pioneers. So I stayed in the brewery. That didn't work out. So then I stayed involved with brewing operations and breweries, and always loved the beer. So I invested in a local brewery here in Berks County, but they never got off the ground. That was about 6 years ago. And they still haven't got off the ground. So my wife and I decided that we were going to open a brewery before we retired. I was still in the military, and she's a school teacher. And, so we didn't need the money from the brewery to survive. And then the military came down and said, oh, by the way, you're retiring next month. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to. And they're like, oh, no, you have to. So it ended up being more of a thing to support ourselves normally. So that was my convoluted path to it here in Penn Avenue. It took us about 2 years to get here, going to different places. We looked in Muhlenberg, we looked in Leesport, we looked out in Maxitoy Township outside of Kutztown, and spent a lot of money and time, and nothing ever seemed to come to fruition. So we just we lost out on a deal on a property out in Kutztown, and we were coming to Penn Avenue to drown our sorrows, and we're like, oh, a couple places for rent, during the pandemic. So I guess some people didn't stick with it through the pandemic. So yeah, we're the stupid ones that opened it during the pandemic.
There are quite a few people that I know that opened up during the pandemic, and they have luckily made it. So glad to see that you are still here. I know on your website it said you kind of were just home brewing for a while and then doing craft fests. What made you decide to go back in on that dream? Was it that breweries are just a lot easier to open nowadays with the regulations, or you just never gave up hope?
Just never gave up hope. I always wanted to do it. My wife always says that, it's my husband's dream. She goes, I just got dragged along for the ride. But she likes beer as much as I do. She didn't necessarily have the palate that I had when we first met, but she's now expanded, and she actually likes IPAs now. Nice. She didn't like them before, but she gets some of them are still too bitey for her.
Okay, so more the West Coast is off limits for her?
Yeah, that West Coast is off, and she'll do the citrusy ones, and she likes the Ugly Dog. Her favorite beer is our chocolate stout, which is named from my mother-in-law. She was born on Easter, so everyone always called her Bunny. So much that I was married to my wife a couple of years. I'm like, what's your mom's real name? But she had Alzheimer's, so my wife took care of her. They lived down near Oaks, PA, and she would go down a couple nights a week down there. And when we opened, her mother always loved Guinness and heavy stouts and that type of thing. So we made a beer. It's called Hollow Chocolate Bunnies, and she renamed it after her. So we donate $1 from every pour we have of that beer goes to Alzheimer's research, and she passed away last February. So
that's unfortunate. How old was she?
In her late 70s, I believe.
Okay. So still relatively early, unfortunately, but I know Alzheimer's can be
it's a devastating disease, yeah.
Yeah, not very fun at all. I did have that kind of as a later question, but I did see that you do a lot for charity. Obviously, you like animals as well. Do you want to tell the people at home just some of the charities and stuff that are near and dear to you?
Yeah, we do. Most Wednesday nights we do something called Steal the Glass, and we team up with local charities or groups, and from 6 to 10 they get $1 off all of our pours, and then we get glassware that's has our logo on it one side and the charity's logo on the other side, and we encourage you to steal the glass, but then the charity tries to catch you stealing the glass. And if they catch you stealing the glass, you have to pay for the glass, and the money goes to the charity. So some of the ones we've done is the Humane Society, the Animal Rescue League, the House That Fur Built. Those are dog ones. A lot of the other ones are local. West Reading Police, West Reading Fire, Wyomissing Public Library, Reading Museum, Great Muzzle Manor, which is an animal rescue, and Positive Hearts is another one that we did. We did Keystone Military Families. We did glassing, and then they ended up being the beneficiary of the veteran beer from this year.
Okay.
So there was 20 of us veteran-owned breweries, and we all got together and brewed a beer that came out on Memorial Day. And Kyle from the Keystone Military Families, she was the recipient of all the donations and proceeds from brewing that beer. So I think she got somewhere, I believe, around $20,000.
Okay. This was what, the 4th year I believe you guys did it, or
I think it's third.
Okay.
Third. I've been involved for 2 years.
Okay.
But I think they did it 1 year before that.
I think it's what, Adapt and Overcome, is that the name of
Yeah,
it?
Adapt and Overcome was the name of it last year. This was Adapt and Overcome Danger Zone this year. Which every time I hear that, I think of
Top Gun.
Top Gun and Archer in my head. Danger Zone.
So for stealing the glass, I'm assuming most people get caught on purpose just to kind of pay for the charity.
Most people, some people get it and they steal it and they go outside and then they come back in and say, hey, we stole this, we want to pay for it. And then some people are, have no qualms stealing from charity.
Gotcha, I figured. You didn't list off a lot of animal ones. Obviously, you guys have some barktenders here,
Yes.
and people react pretty positively. We've got one of them down here at our feed right now. Do you want to tell the people a little about your little puppers that are here?
He's asleep. That's Declan. He is almost 13 years old. He's a Jack Russell, and he comes here when mostly when we're closed. And we have another one, Willow, and she's a year-old golden retriever, but she's actually training to be my service dog from the military. So she's actually allowed to be here, which we had some custom. I wouldn't say them customers because they never bought anything. They walked in, walked out, went immediately to Google and slammed us on Google because we had a dog. I'm like, guess you're not going to please everybody.
No, unfortunately not. And that is the blessing and the curse for the internet. It's accessible to everyone. And
People come in here specifically, they like the fact that we have a dog. And she greets everybody when they come in, and 9 times out of 10, everybody's like, "Oh, yeah."
I never get upset about an animal, so I don't know how people can get like that. But hey,
Always my dream whenever I decided I wanted to have a brewery or a bar, I would go back to my time in England where I had to step over 3 or 4 dogs to get to the bar in England. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I want.
I always like to ask, how did you come up with the name Willow Creek Brewing?
One of the first places we looked at going to was on Willow Creek Road up in Leesport on Lonnie Township. And we struck a deal and we're getting ready to go there. And then we paid $6,000 for a zoning variance and got the zoning variance. And then the appraiser for the property said, oh, no, this isn't a residential home. It was an old farmhouse. This isn't a residential home. this is commercial, because there's desks and stuff in there. I'm like, so she refused to, because I was buying it through the VA. She refused to appraise it. I'm like, okay, so that kind of killed that deal. So my wife, the parent corporation of the brewery is Mackay Brewing, which is my middle name, and it's Mackay Brewing LLC. And she didn't, I don't know why, but she didn't want to be a Irish bar.
Okay.
So, but every time we go and make it, oh, there's an Irish, let's go there. So she liked the name Willow Creek, so we just kind of stuck with it. It came with us.
Okay, awesome. And I think the first time I talked with you, you were still using a smaller, like, homebrew system. Are you still using that, or did you upgrade it all?
I am still using that system. I gypsy brew over at Chatty Monk's, some of our big flagships, but then I'm in the middle of buying a new system that'll quadruple our production. So it's still small, but it gives us the ability to get ahead of the game a little bit.
Is that going to be a 3-barrel then, or
It'll be a barrel.
just about? Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
So I'll have a barrel and a half worth of production, and the whole thing with us is not nearly the size of the system. It's the amount of fermenters.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have more fermenters, you're able to have more beer going at different times.
So for all the nerds watching at home, how many fermenters do you have? Do you have any bright tanks?
I've got 2 bright tanks, and then I've got the new system I'll have 7 fermenters. But I have to be really concerned because we do our brewing in the basement, and our biggest door to get down into the basement is 32 inches.
Oh.
So, and then we have 7-foot ceilings. So there's no big systems that I can get that'll fit in there. Well, we could lift the whole building up, put one in, and then put the building back down, but it's not very feasible.
No, unfortunately not. So yeah, you're working with limited space.
Yeah.
I'm assuming eventually you might have to brew out of somewhere else.
We seem to be able to maintain with the Gypsy Brewing at Chatty Monk's. We seem to be able to maintain but it's also they're a production facility, so it's hard sometimes to get hey, I'm running out of this. Okay, we'll get that in the system. Takes a little bit of time.
Stemler's a nice guy though, so
Yes.
we'll see how things
He's a
go.
great guy.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
I just feel like a Neanderthal man when I go over there because sometimes he talks and I'm just like, bah, 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 bah. Yeah, I'm nowhere near the level of him brewing he is.
He's been doing it for quite a while. I know Free Will was very successful before he stepped away, so it's really cool to see how much he's brought Chatty Monk's up from where it was. So awesome there. Now we're sitting here in the front area, really big windows, nice wood area. I know you have an outside. Want to tell people a little bit about your space and what they can expect?
A lot of people describe it as, I feel like I'm at somebody's house. So it has a little bit of a cozy feel. There's a couch in the one room and separated into 4 different areas. And, it's just, that's our goal is trying to make you feel comfortable and feel like you're just hanging out with your buddies.
I know you do have the outdoor area as well. I know a lot of times you guys have music back there. I've seen people dancing already. Is that going to continue throughout the summer? Do you have any plans?
We try to do every Friday and Saturday. Bands are busy in the summertime, so sometimes we only get to Saturdays or Fridays. But we do that, and then we have a couple different events that come up. And we had a food truck in the other night. We have food here normally, but we had a food truck in. One of our friends came in and he started his inaugural night was here. So he did his ribbon cutting and everything else like here. So it was fun.
Very cool. Well, we've got a flight in front of us, 2 flights technically. Do you want to talk about some of the beers here? I'm assuming most of these are flagships that you normally have on?
Yeah, 6 of our 6 flagships are a Blonde Ale and a West Coast style IPA, a New England IPA, a Black Cherry IPA, and the Hollow Chocolate Bunnies.
Okay.
So I'd probably go to the Brooks.
Okay.
Brooks is here. I'd probably go from that to...
Okay. So for the people watching at home, what is Brooks?
Brooks is a Blonde Ale. It's actually named after a friend of mine that I knew whenever I was in the Air Force back in the 80s, and we remained friends, and he moved to eventually moved to Westchester to work for a company I was working for at that time, and he bought a house near or outside of Westchester and ended up having an argument with his neighbor. His neighbor murdered her in the front yard. So, yeah, so we have $1 off every pour that goes to that foundation that his wife set up.
Okay, so we've got 2 foundation beers at least. Do we have any more on right now?
No, that's the only 2, the Brooks and the Bunny.
Well, giving back is a really big part for you, so that's really awesome to see.
My wife refers to the Hollow Chocolate Bunnies whenever we give money for the research for Alzheimer's. She considers that investing in her future.
Okay.
She thinks that she may be genetically predisposed to follow in her mother's footsteps, and I always tell her it doesn't matter. I'll always be here to take care of her. So.
Well, that's really good. Hopefully they can find a cure at some point.
They broke through a couple different things. They can find it, the precursors, and you're able to inoculate against. I forget. I saw something the other day.
Well, it's definitely refreshing. It's crisp. It's really light. Are you using like a Pilsner yeast?
No, I use regular ale yeast.
Ale yeast, okay.
Yeah, everything here I use is an ale yeast.
Okay.
And that's what we call our starter beer. Because people come in and it's like, what do you have that's like Coors Light? I'm like, you're putting the bar up there high for me. And so I said, dude, this is our blonde ale. This is our starter beer. People like it because it has the nice crisp taste.
Mm-hmm. That is very easy to drink, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
It's going to be really nice. I like to call that a lawnmower beer for sure. It's
Yeah.
easy going. Where would you go next? Would you go to, can't really see the colors, I'm guessing ugly, or?
Turn these around.
Okay.
It's funny, we had what I refer to as a lawnmower beer earlier in the year, because I don't know whether anybody listens, or I'm sure all the beer geeks heard about the brewery in the Ukraine that when the invasion happened, they stopped making beer and started making Molotov cocktails.
Oh, very cool.
So they did that, and then they put all the recipes out on the internet, and one of the recipes, am I allowed to say bad words on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I wasn't sure whether this is a PG podcast.
No, it is not. You are allowed to go on.
The name of one of their beers was Putin is a Dickhead. So my buddy, old Army buddy, called me like, hey, can I come up and, he's a home brewer. He's like, can I come up and we can brew this beer? He goes, I'll pay for the ingredients. I'm like, you don't have to pay for the ingredients. He said, yeah, come up, let's do it. So we did it. Ended up being a very light, crisp, refreshing beer. Generally our beers last, the size of our system lasts, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Putin is a Dickhead lasted not even a week. Because everybody come in, they're like, oh, I'll have that. And it was on the coming soon board for a long time. They're like, when is that coming? And I'm like, which everybody always wants what they can't have.
That is very true.
It's funny with the coming soon board. They're always like, because we had a beer that was in a cask, a bourbon cask.
Okay.
So those take a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was up there for like 6 months. When is that coming? It was something called Should Have Listened to Joe, my wife Joanne. And they kept saying, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? I'm like, oh my God, it's in a cask. It's going through, it's seasoning all the bourbon. You don't want me to pull it out early. And they're like, when's it coming? So then as soon as it finally came, I moved it over, and they go, when's the pretzel beer coming? I'm like, oh my God, stop. So, yeah, so I'm sorry I digressed there.
Oh, no, you're
I'd
good.
say the next one to go to would probably be Ugly.
Okay.
Ugly Dog.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is our number 1 selling beer.
Okay.
It's a hazy IPA, New England style.
Shocking that hazy IPA is a number 1 seller.
Yes.
I have not seen that anywhere before. Got to give the people what they want, right?
Well, it's funny. Whenever we do the veteran beer, it was a hazy IPA this year, and they the first year I did it, they say, okay, what kind of beer style do we want to do, and they end up putting out. It's really just a questionnaire to those guys and say, okay, well, here's the styles we talked about. Here's everything else, and whenever they said. I said, okay, we're going to do a hazy New England. And I'm like, put it on mute. I'm like, no. Because there's so many good styles. Not that hazy, I love hazy New Englands myself. But, and then they came up this year and like, oh, let's do a hazy New England. I'm like, oh. Also, whenever on the Zoom calls, I'm looking around at all these guys, on my screen and everything. I'm like, I'm the only one that doesn't have a beard.
Yep. That is something I determined was a prerequisite. Almost every single person has a beard, so I've been determined that I'm never going to be a full-time brewer because it's just I can't grow one, so it's not going to happen. But I guess there is a balance between they want to make sure it's a style that enough people will want and they want to move it because they do want to get the charity, but at the same time, I do like when people do something crazy. I know the Lancaster Brewers Guild for the second collab they did was a Maibach.
Oh,
and very cool. They're talking about for the third one's probably going to be some form of Pilsner or lager. It's definitely year of the lager for sure. Seems to be a resurgence. I think people are finally starting to get tired of all of the New Englands. We'll see. It took a little bit longer than some of the styles. I know a few years ago, high IBUs were all the rage. They wanted it super bitter. Then hazies kind of came in. Brewed IPAs were here for about a minute, if you even remember those. But yeah, we've got your hazy here. So what is in this hop-wise? We have...
Cascade and Centennial.
Okay.
A little bit of Mosaic.
Okay, so some of the classic hops in here.
We don't put lactose in. Oh, we're talking about beer going out the door. When we had the Adapt and Overcome, the Danger Zone this year, my kegs are stored sometimes over at Chatty Monk's because I don't have the storage space down here. And so I went over and got my cases, got them like a week early. So they were in the cooler, and I come back and I'm like go to my wife. I'm like, who sold the Adapt and Overcome? She goes, I did. I'm like, you can't sell that till next Friday. She's like, why is it in the cooler? I'm like, because it's cold. So we finally sold that last Friday, and on Memorial Day weekend. But I didn't have the kegs over here to put it on tap. I only had the cans. Well, we had 6 cases. I came in Saturday morning because we were doing. I think my daughter graduated something with my daughter. So we had our regular bartender come in. And she didn't really, she said, hey, it was a busy night and everything like that. I didn't think anything about it. I come in Saturday morning, there's 3 4-packs left.
Nice.
I was like, wow. And then we put it on tap that same day, but it was just like, and it didn't last. I think it was a couple weeks. It was gone. I had 2 kegs too, so it's like.
That's awesome. That's great. It sucks for the people that don't run right out and get it, but at the same time, some of these beers, you just got to get in, so snooze, you lose on some of those. If you see something, guys, and you want it, FOMO is real, but get out there, and especially when it's for a good cause like that. Military is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, so it's really cool that you guys continue to do that. Hopefully it expands. I'm not sure how many veterans are planning to open up breweries, but hopefully it continues to go.
Well, we're all thick-headed in the skull, so, yeah. We tend to do things in groups. I'd say the next one try would be the Irish Red.
Irish Red, okay.
Mackay's Irish Red.
One of your throwbacks to overseas, or?
No, actually, no. Just the way we do our flagships is I've been to places, and I'm not criticizing, I've been to places that have 70% of their beer menu is IPAs. And you can really go from IPA, and it doesn't taste much different.
Mm-hmm.
So we really didn't want to do that. We wanted to have flagships. We have 3 IPAs on there, but they're distinctly different. And there's a West Coast style, a New England style, and a black cherry. So they are completely different as far as styles and flavors and everything like that. So one of the ones that you never rarely see on time, except around St. Patrick's Day, is an Irish Red. So we decided to make an Irish Red and stick with it.
Okay. It's got a nice malt character, nice sweetness in here as well. It smells fantastic, so let's see. So far they have been really good. I'm really enjoying the stuff that we have here. I'd highly recommend people coming out, especially try something that's not in your comfort zone. You may have never had one of these before. Don't be afraid that it's not, a hazy New England. Give these a try. You might be surprised what you can start to like. That's the cool thing from my part-time job is slowly getting people to try something a little different. So definitely, guys, give these a try. He's got a lot of stuff here. Now, the one you said that was a cherry IPA, do you add the cherry in fermenting or?
It goes in the boil.
Boil, okay.
Yeah, so I have the big black cherries. They go in the boil. And then I use a little bit of cherry extract when I go in for fermentation. Then I just put a pinch in before it goes in the keg. So
one of the questions I have for you, might as well talk about it while we're enjoying some of these beers. Who is your biggest inspiration in the beer industry?
Well, some of the beers I fell in love with back in the 80s when I started drinking. So I would always drink Bass Ale. And Bass Ale was, just the pinnacle of an IPA. Even now, it just seems like it's like a poor representation, but it's the original.
Mm-hmm.
It's the original they used to ship down to England or to India. So Bass was, and then Sierra Nevada always has the regular IPAs, the West Coast IPAs, and Brooklyn has their brown. So those really were my three inspirational beers that I always get, and that's one thing that I haven't done and I should do more of is browns. So I just I tend to cater to what people are asking for and stick with our regular. Probably one of our flagships we should have in the beer is a brown. Well, I'm sorry, the Faller's Pretzel, that's a brown ale.
Okay.
So that ends up being a good niche. Try the Huckleberry.
Is this named after Tombstone?
Actually, it is kind of. And then for the night we rolled it out, there was a guy that came in and said, there's a controversy whether he actually said, I'll be your Huckleberry or I'll be your Hucklebearer. And he goes, the huckle is what they call the buckles on the side of a coffin. They call them the huckle. He goes, so I'll be your Hucklebearer. And I'm like, so my wife's like, no, it's Huckleberry.
I'm going to say I've seen the movie multiple times. I've never heard anyone with that that conspiracy.
It was just unique that, that someone comes in and goes, oh, well, there's the Hucklebearer. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's my brother-in-law's favorite movie quote ever. He's got it up down in his little man cave bar. So it's definitely something a lot of people quote.
Should send him in here for this.
Right? So this one is... So describe this. I'm getting some really nice aroma off of this. What do we have?
Yeah, it's Huckleberry. I actually had to go and get it from a specialty food store. And then they went in the boils, and then I used a little bit, and I squeezed out and made some juice, and then add that in right before kegging.
I don't believe I have ever had Huckleberry in my life. So
they're very rare on the East Coast.
Okay, so this is it's a West Coast thing. So what kind of flavor is a Huckleberry for the people?
It's like no other flavor I've had before, but it's in the blueberry family.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, different. Yeah, it's in the blueberry family, and but it's not. It looks more like a black raspberry.
Okay.
Than a blueberry.
I would say that it's like blueberry without the tartness, kind of like some strawberry sweetness a little bit.
Good.
It's very interesting. I wish more people would use huckleberries now, but it's probably that because it's not common. It's like a nice, almost like a rosé color here in the glass, but it's really beautiful and it drinks very nice. It's really, really good. What else do we have here? We've got...
So I would go with the Fallers.
Okay.
Fallers is in the city of Reading. It's a pretzel place. It's the oldest one in Reading that's still there. It's 103 years old.
Okay.
And they use, don't drink it yet, they use a brick oven to do their pretzels. They add a very distinctive taste to the pretzels. So you want to think about how they taste and then how it imparts into the beer we make.
So here we have the bag of them. I can smell it right on the nose. So you put it right into the boil, I'm assuming. So
Yeah, it goes in the boil, and I add a little kosher salt later.
Okay. And how old are they?
103 years old.
1911. Wow. Okay.
Or maybe 1911, so they're 112 years old. Yeah.
Well, they obviously know what they're doing, or
I
they've
think
got
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So well, let's give it a try. It tastes like I'm drinking a pretzel.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
That's what when people come in, they're like, what do you? She goes, well, what's the Fallers? I'm like, it's a pretzel ale. What does that mean? I'm like, what do you mean? What does that mean? It's a beer that tastes like a pretzel. They're like, oh, I'll try it. Then like, oh.
I'm assuming it did pretty well the other week on the Pretzel Fest that was on Penn Ave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was
we
kind
did
of
it. We that was kind of our inauguration. We brought it in a little bit before that, but that was it. And then we had hot dogs on pretzel buns. We have our pretzel bites that we have all the time. We had that out there, and then we'd use a beer cheese that's made with cheddar and smoked Gouda, and it's very good. I always tell people when they come in and they're looking at the food menu, and I'm like, don't order the pretzels. They're like, why? I'm like, because I'll have nothing to eat at the end of the night.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic though. You hit the mark on this one.
Good, thank you.
Sometimes people say, "Hey, this flavor's in it," and you're like, "I don't really get it." But yeah, no, this tastes like you just melted down a pretzel. You even get the salt note on it too. So very, very well done. Let me try this now and see. Yep.
Kind of figured out where it came from, huh?
Yeah. So you do have some events. I know you pride yourself in some of the fests you do. Do you have any beer fests coming up that you guys are doing?
We're doing a beer event with Grey Muzzle Manor. They have an event over in Shillington area. They do an event over there every year. So we're going over there and helping them out a little bit. That's coming up. And then we have French Fry Festival. It's coming up here in August.
Okay.
So we do Drunken Kegs, which are, oh God, this is how we're getting old. They're not pretzels. It's the, oh God, let's move on to a different subject until it comes back into my head. But we always do stuff down, so we do tater tots. Those tater tots with our beer cheese on the top and then some bacon. Okay. Which was really wild last year because we made a fair-sized little boat of them. Mm-hmm. So it had maybe 10 or 12 tots in it. Because we thought we want something small so you can go to multiple places and get something smaller.
Makes sense.
And turn around, I see people carrying shoe boxes of French fries. And I was like, they're not going to eat anything else. They'll have that one order and then they're done for the day. But we try to keep it small so you can try multiple things.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's January, February time frame. There's the Ice and Spice.
Oh, okay.
That's the ice carving one.
Yep.
Last year was the 32 ice carvings, and we did our.
You did the logo, right?
Yeah, our Irish Red logo.
Yeah. I like that one, and I really like the pumpkin event where you guys shut down the block. Most of the people watching this at home are going to be beer lovers, but there are people that know people that don't like beer. What do you guys have for the non-beer drinker and the non-alcohol drinker in general?
We're actually talking. It's funny you bring up the non-alcohol, and we're actually talking about creating some mocktails to do that. But it's funny when people come in, the lights are on. The boards tend to overwhelm whoever's there. The lights will be, and they never see the beers up top, which are our flagships. So I always say, there's 6 beers up top, and then the beers on the board here, the 2 beer boards here, and then there's a board here. If you don't like beer, I like to say get out. But my wife says, no, you're not allowed to do that anymore. So we have a variety of things. We teamed up with Hillbilly Hooch. They have Bum's Rush Restaurant, and they have their own distillery. They are very great for us. And We do drinks. In the wintertime, we do salted caramel and apple cider. We have a candy cane, moonshine, and hot chocolate.
Okay.
In the summertime, we do a blueberry thrill, which is blueberry, hooch, and lemonade. We do a strawberry lemonade with strawberry lemonade hooch. We have Slutty Shirley,
Okay.
which is...
She gets around, eh?
She does. More than Dirty Shirley did.
Oh.
So we that it's cherry, moonshine, and 7-Up. So a lot of different things that, and we have we actually brew our own tea, and then we take our vodka, our bourbon, and we infuse them with tea bags with peach tea, and then we pour that into a drink, and then we add a little peach puree, and then we add our unsweetened iced tea or peach tea. So that's our Jasper Jack. So you can get that with vodka, bourbon, or moonshine.
That is very unique. I've never seen some of those cocktails before. Do you have a background in, mixology?
No, I was a bartender. When I first got out of the Air Force, I was a bartender for about 10 years.
Okay.
When I was going through college.
So what do we have? Bunny we're saving for last, so we've got
so
two
then we
left.
have Basement Monkey.
Okay.
So this beer actually came out of COVID. It was originally named COVID-19. We didn't think that would sell.
You'd be surprised. I bought a beer called Fuck COVID just because of the name.
But this came out of COVID. My wife was in lockdown. I was in lockdown with the military, and she's like, well, if I have to work, because she was working virtually, if I have to work, you have to work. So there's a lot of projects around this house that need finished. I'm like, okay. So I had probably a month and a half in, and I had finished a buttload of projects. And I said, I'm so sick of doing projects. She goes, why don't you just make some beer? So the only thing I had left in the refrigerator was black cherries.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, I'll make a beer. Came out really well, and then started brewing it here. And the joke of me dragging my knuckles up the stairs when I'm down brewing beer, you're no bit better than a Basement Monkey. So love it. Lo and behold, the Basement Monkey name came out.
I absolutely love hearing how people come up with their names. It's one of my favorite. That's a great name. The only thing that sucks is when you think you have an original name and then you go on Untapped and then you notice that there's 400 people that have already come up.
I don't think that's ever come up with that with Basement Monkey.
No, I'm first thing I thought of, not gonna lie, when I heard Monkey was Victory, Belgian. So I was expecting a Belgian, but this is actually really refreshing, really nice. You get the cherry notes for sure.
Yeah, we use Mosaic and Citra hops.
Okay.
So it's not an IPA that's bitey. We always can say it's the IPA for people who don't like IPAs.
Okay, that
So,
makes sense.
It's an IPA because it's heavily hopped, but it's not hopped with real bitters. And then we use it on the whirlpool at the end of it, so it's not real bitter going through.
This one honestly doesn't even taste like beer. It's
Once you try the next one.
okay, well, we'll see how that one goes. This one is very refreshing. So for anyone at home not sure about IPAs or anything, this is a good beer to get into. So for the people watching at home that might not be familiar, where are you located? How can they find you? Social medias, all that stuff.
Yeah, we're on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, and we are at 643 Penn Avenue in West Reading. So we're right up the street from Chatty Monks, and if you're familiar with it, with West Reading, Bar Cart and Nona Obbies are in the next block. So we're right before you get to that as you're heading through West Reading, away from Reading.
So no Untapped, but you have TikTok. So I'm curious, what do you guys do on TikTok? Because I do not. That's one of the only platforms I don't do. I don't understand it.
The only thing we had on TikTok, we go on TikTok every once in a while. Declan will be on a TikTok because our social media girl loves. I think he loves our dog better than we do. So one of the ones was me dancing.
Oh, okay.
So I wore my brewing boots all the time, and it was dancing to "Get on Your Boots" by U2, and then she actually put it to Nancy Sinatra's "These Boots Are Made for Walking." So if you go into Facebook or Instagram and search us, you'll find me dancing with my boots on.
And that's how the customers flock here. They just want to see.
Yeah, they want to see the idiot that was dancing. So this is Strawberry Fields.
Okay.
And it is a white chocolate covered strawberry.
Okay, I was interested in this one.
Yeah, and it was just a beer I made, and then now it's become a sensation. I did it last summer, and people were saying, you have to brew this again. You have to have this on year round. And I'm like, I'm not drinking a strawberry white chocolate in December. But people were wanting it, and then we brewed it 4 times last summer. And then I stopped brewing it, and people were talking about it the whole time. It was like, when do you bring white chocolate back? Because what happens is people come in here, and they're like, could you have beer? I'm like, well, we have the drinks too. And I said, well, here, try this. I'll give them a taste of the Strawberry Fields, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll have that. So people come in here that don't like beer and drink that beer because they want to drink beer, but they
Don't want to drink beer.
Right. They don't like the taste of beer, but they love the taste of that. This isn't beer. I'm like, I swear to God, I use the same ingredients.
Beer-flavored beer. It's all the rage.
Yes.
It smells like one of those strawberry cream lifesavers that I used to eat nonstop. Yeah. Do you actually use chocolate in to get the flavoring? Okay.
Yeah, white chocolate.
It smells fantastic. So let's see. How far off from beer does this taste? Any lactose at all in it, or
No,
just the sweetness from
lactose.
the... Okay.
Yeah, I don't want it in my stuff.
No, it doesn't taste like beer, so I get it. Okay.
Well, some people, they talked about, like, we have 2 beers coming up. One is Sponge of the Bob, or Bob of the Sponge, and that is a pineapple cucumber.
Okay.
So that's coming up. That should be here probably maybe by the end of the week. And one of the other ones you're talking about naming a beer is Fred. So when we first opened up, we had a Guava Blonde, and I'm like, I want to name this beer Fred. I'm always like, that is the stupidest name you could possibly name for a beer. I'm like, Fred is cool. Fred is a good name for a beer. You just gotta have a Fred. She goes, no, we're not naming it Fred. She does most of 90% of the names. And so I said, well, fine. So it was everybody needs a blonde. So that's what the Guava Blonde was originally.
Okay.
So then we did a Girl Scout cookie pairing, and 2 girls came in that night, and they were drinking because we had them in a flight, and then the cookies that matched them and everything like that. And I said, I lost this fight with my wife that I wasn't allowed to name a beer Fred. Just like, that's the best name for a beer.
I told you.
Hanging out with Fred. I'm meeting Fred at Willow Creek. Had a great time with Fred last night. Everything like that. I'm like, so then I put it out on Facebook. I'm like, I want to name a beer Fred. Joanne says no, and everything else. So on Facebook, it was like overwhelming. Like, Fred is the coolest name ever. Are you going to carry on the same lines as Wilma and Bam Bam? And then we've got a Don't Be Prickly, which is a prickly pear. Okay. And then we have Amy's Folly, which is Amy is our bartender social media girl. And that's a black double IPA.
Now, it's only fitting that we end with a bunny. I think this is really well done on our part. So we're going to see how this goes. And this is the Alzheimer's charity beer.
Yes.
So let's see. It smells fantastic.
Thank you.
Chocolate. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
I really like this. So this is on all the time?
Yeah, that's all the time.
That's a really good
We
flagship.
occasionally run out of it, but yeah, it's all.
Chocolate malt?
Yep.
Okay. And what hops are you using in this? If you had to check what you wrote down.
That's a lot of times it is. People say, "What's the ABV on this?" I'm like, I have no idea. I wrote it down, and I don't remember that stuff. I have trouble remembering what I ate for breakfast. Hallertau.
Okay.
Yeah. Hallertau, a little bit of what's the English? Fuggles.
Okay. That's my favorite. I really, really like the Huckleberry too for its uniqueness. That was really good. But all of them have been really, really unique. I really want to come back and try some of your accidents that happen. I'll keep an eye out on social media for you dancing and all of that. So, is there any last things that you want to say to the people watching at home?
There's a funny story about naming the beers. My daughter, who's almost 19, there's a couple different stories I'll tell, and she was like, "Dad, do you not love me?" I'm like, "Oh, I hate teenager girl drama." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Everybody has a beer named after them. Declan has a beer named after him. We had a watermelon IPA we named after him. It was called Declan's Nose Art, because he always nose art on my windows in the car." And we had a couple different ones. So I named, her name is Reese. So I did a chocolate peanut butter beer. And I named it Reese's Cup of Peanut Butter, Budda. And so there'd be no copyright infringement with any Hershey products. So we did that, and then so we always come up, see, that was her name, she finally got named in a beer, because Joanne had like 3 or 4 of them, and Willow has a couple. And the other story was our license actually ends at midnight, so you can't have anybody in here after midnight. And then my 22-year-old son decided that he wanted to come in on his birthday and have his first legal beer here. So it was Valentine's Day, it was when he was born, and 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, it was Sunday. So he came in Saturday night, and at 12:01 he had a beer here. And he said, "Dad, your IPAs are much better." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Your IPAs are much better than they used to be." I'm like, "How do you know what my IPAs were before?" Because I used to homebrew, and then I would bottle everything, and they would fight over who got to do the capper, because that was the constant. So he would shortstop the beer, drink part of it, and then cap it. I'm like, "I never knew this." He goes, "Oh yeah, Dad." He goes, "You're much better now." I'm like, "You were drinking uncarbonated beer." I'm like, "I'm surprised it was." He goes, "Well, it was my introduction to beer as a little kid." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm terrible." Just child protective. Well, thank God he's old enough to be drinking on his own now. So yeah, there's a lot of different things and stories. I think that's the funnest part of being in the brewing industry, is you have these stories. People always say I'm a great storyteller, but I don't see it. But people always ask, like, "What made you want to go into brewing?" I'm like, "Well, I wanted a better beer," but she goes, "Well, what was kept you, tied to the brewery so much, or to the beer now?" I said, "Honestly, smell." They're like, "Smell?" I'm like, the smell of cooking beer, the smell of hops. Every time when I brew down in the basement, this whole place smells, wonderful. So people come in and are like, "What's that smell?" I'm like, "Oh, that's Sponge of the Bob." And then I'll always come up, whenever I add the hops, I'll always come up with the empty bags and let everybody smell the empty bags. And like, some people are like, "What is it? Is this pot?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm brewing with pot." But people I love the smell. So that's kind of where, and there's nothing better. I saw you doing the same thing, putting your nose in the beer, just the way it smells.
Mosaic and Citra, they smell fantastic. I wish people would make candles out of them more often, because I think that would smell fantastic. The stout brew days smell fantastic too, with the malts. It's like baking a cake. That stuff is fantastic. But it sounds like you aren't going to lose your passion anytime soon. You're here to stay.
Yeah, we're good.
Which is awesome. So you guys watching at home, if you have not been here yet, definitely check them out. They're on Penn Ave. Make a day of it. Go to all the different places that are here. Make sure you come in and say hi to Mark and Joanne and all the barktenders that will be here as well. They'll greet you. I don't know if you can give them treats, but I always...
I had to stop buying regular dog treats, because people, they would get like 10 to 12 a day. People would just come in, they'd open the treat jar, and then of course Willow's over there. Like, "I'm here. Do you want a paw? Do you want me to sit? Bark? What do you want?"
I'll do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes to get a treat. And then people will sit here and they don't realize the tree jar is there. And then Willow will come up and be like, hi. And they're like, what? I'm like, you're sitting next to the TREAT jar. She's like, oh, can I give her one? I'm like, yeah. So now I've gone to the point to where Fallers is now our treat sponsor. So all the treat jars full of Fallers pretzels. So
Smart.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that after a while, dogs learn how to spell. Because my old dog that we used to have figured out what those words meant. They would run to the door for a walk. Yeah, they're pretty smart. So definitely come say hi to everyone, have some beers, and just come out and support a good local brewery. I know these people need us more than ever, and that's kind of my mission, to make sure these places stay around. The big guys aren't going anywhere. Come out here and support the little ones, help them grow into something big and sustainable for the rest of their life here. This is their livelihood now. So thanks everyone for watching. If you're new to the channel, think about hitting the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys next time.